Miriam Vogel is the president and CEO of EqualAI and chair of the White House's National AI Advisory Committee. She is joined on stage by the Messenger's science and technology editor, David Ewalt.
So, Miriam, we're here talking about getting AI right, making it responsible. Well, I think we have to define that, right? Let's start with that.
Let's start with that.
What is responsible AI?
Thank you for that question. What a great place to start. What is this thing of which we speak and hope for? That's a really important place to start because we're throwing around these terms. We're moving quickly. We have to make sure we're aligned. I would argue, and what we've been saying for 5 years, is responsible AI is building trust with your AI systems, ensuring that you have systems in place to deserve that trust, that you have the frameworks, that you have the best practices, and then communicating to the broader ecosystem, to your employees, to your consumers, how you've gone about building that trust. It's a 3-part process. It's easier said than done because, as we know, we have a time right now where the framework, the landscape is not crystal clear. A lot of this is being decided as we go, but there are laws on the books that apply, whether you're talking about AI-based decisions, human, or a combination of the both. We have a paper coming out imminently where we survey the laws that are currently on the books to give a sample of what is imperative that all companies understand, that they have it top of mind when they are building or deploying or licensing AI. But a lot of this comes down to what are you doing internally? It's about best practices.
Right. And so that is a long process, and we're really talking about getting our fingers into it from the initial development of the AI all the way out until it's deployed, and we're regulating its use. But maybe we should start with, well, where are we right now? Have we made progress? Are we in a good place? What do you feel about our current state of readiness for this?
Yes, we've made progress, but I would say we are at a critical juncture. I think we are at a moment when we can, if we continue at our current trajectory, not be in a good position, significantly increase the opportunity gap, significantly increase the variable, the delta between who is benefiting from AI, both economically and personally, and who is not. However, I think we are at this exciting moment where we have the opportunity to do better. We have the opportunity to use AI to help reach more people. We have AI that is now more accessible if we can make sure people use it and want to use it and are safe to use it. And if we're very thoughtful in some of the questions brought up in our last discussion, how do we make sure that the broader ecosystem, how do we make sure that AI is built by and for a broader cross-section of our community?
Okay, so let's start there. So I know that first we start putting the AIs together. We've got companies developing them. You recently put together this white paper, and I know that you talked to a lot of corporations. There was a lot of different voices involved in putting this together. What were your takeaways about how different entities are putting together responsible AI and where we're getting started there?
Yeah, well, the good news is a lot of companies are thinking about what it means to be a responsible actor. And what's interesting is while we're talking about this being a time of unknowns, those who are giving deep intention and thought are often coming up with the same answers. The other thing that I think is interesting is being a good, responsible AI actor is not very different from being a good corporate citizen, a good, strong organization. A lot of the best practices are what you would expect of a corporation otherwise. There's one new important variable, and that's making sure that you have a framework in place to manage your AI system. But again, not a novel concept. We've done this in cybersecurity. We've done this in privacy. It's making sure you're being intentional about how you're going to approach your AI use, development, deployment within your organization. The good news is there. We have the NIST risk management framework and other great frameworks out there to build on. But the other piece is what we call good AI hygiene are really broadly being applied across companies that are giving thought to this.
How much are we hamstrung by the development process here in that when we look at, okay, this is a problem that we've created in the AI world, or this is something we need to regulate against, a lot of the examples of AI that we're working with right now came out of corporate research laboratories. That's what they were working on 2 years ago. So how do we make sure that what is being worked on right now, the next generation, is being created responsibly?
Such a great question, because by the time the law plays out, we're a few years away from now, and it's too late for what's being built now and yesterday. As we know, we've used AI how many times today alone? We can't wait for regulations in the future. The good news is there is a lot on the books. So I think we need to start with where are we currently with what is being regulated and accounted for in our current legal system. Again, hopefully our paper will be of some value there, but of significant value within the US, most every federal regulator has come out in the past year or two and explained these are laws within our purview that you need to be aware of. You know, we saw the EEOC come out saying straight out of the bat that they had all of the civil rights purview within the HR and employment context. We saw joint historic statements that haven't happened before between the EEOC and the DOJ. And then following a year later, they also joined with the FTC and the CFPB. All the alphabet soups are coming together to put people on notice. What you are doing that is seemingly fine and safe, don't fall for the false premise, the implicit bias that because it's AI, it's neutral and scientific and thus right. It's right for the use case for which it was designed. It's right for the population on which it was tested. But you need to make sure you know the answer to who those and what that was.
Yeah, you touched on something there that we're waiting for. A lot of this is waiting to see how the courts play out on these issues. How do we regulate for responsibility when we're still waiting for the courts to rule on critical issues like what is copyright and how does it work with AI?
That's a very fair question. You know, there's many laws on the books currently. You know, we're all looking at regulation. I think we all need to be looking at the litigation space. Here we have hundreds, if not thousands, of judges and juries across the country that are going to help us decide how do AI and copyright come together. We're starting to see those cases play out, but as you know, litigation takes some time. You know, that's where we try to step in with EqualAI and others as well to align on best practices. So we have to decide together how are we going to march forward at this time when there are some unknowns. And again, there's precedent out there. We know that for copyright, for instance, they've said a machine cannot have a copyrightable work, and they've confirmed that when you're talking about AI use. So we have some ground rules. We need to make sure we're clear on those, but we need to make sure that we have alignment opportunities for industry to learn from one another and to say, how have you interpreted this? What obstacles have you run into so that we can move forward?
So on the regulatory side, can you tell us a little bit about, well, let's start with your role on the National AI Advisory Committee. What is your role there? Like, what has come out of that office? What have your recommendations to the Biden administration been? What do we need to talk about next with them?
Well, thank you for that. Yes, so the National AI Advisory Committee, for those who are not familiar, was launched a year and a half ago, May of 22, so a little more than that. There's 26 advisors, 26 AI experts across industry, civil society, academia, who are all selected to advise on our congressional mandate, which is to advise the President and the White House on AI policy. So in our first year, we operated as a more traditional federal advisory committee. We assembled, we had our public meeting where we could deliberate and discuss. We had our year one report. Our year one report focused on areas specifically mandated in the statute: workforce, international collaboration, research and development, trustworthy AI, and so forth, competitiveness. And we laid out 14 objectives that we thought the president needed to focus on immediately, with 24 action items. Specifically, here's what you need to do now. They included things ranging from the NAIR that you just heard about. Absolutely need investment in NAIR. Obviously, that's not fully within the president's purview, but we suggested they support legislation in that space. The NIST risk management framework, something we doubled down on in our recommendations. We talked about its use across the federal government, as well as use in international collaborations to create alignment on this really important, impressive document that had already been put into the world based on a multi-stakeholder intense process. For year two, we realized AI is changing everything, and it's the downstream effects, including our own committee and how we needed to be operating. So we threw away the rule book. We now have public meetings pretty much monthly. Instead of waiting for an annual report, we knew April was going to be way too late. Anything we would have recommended by then would have been out of date months before. So now we're putting things out monthly. And on ai.gov/NIAC, I hope some of these resources will be of use to you. There's also many ways to provide input through email, through our public sessions. There's an explainer document, for instance, on the tools available to the federal government to act on AI policy. There's also an FAQ created by those companies that are part of our the people who are in companies working on generative AI, where they created and frequently asked questions on generative AI. What is it? What are the risks? How do you address it? So we're very hopeful that this steady cadence of deliverables can be more responsive to what you're asking for. So keep asking. Tell us what you need.
Well, and keep asking. I think you can ask right now, too. I think we have time for a quick question from the audience, if somebody has one. Or while we look for that, I can throw one out, another to you, too. So you just highlighted, there's 14 areas that the commission is looking at and all these action points, but that is an illustration of how much is happening right now and how much we need to do. Where is the urgency? And what do you think is the thing where, okay, right now we have to move on this first?
Well, I would define that to our purview. So our purview is the president and the White House. And I think the unique areas where we need to see a federal executive action is you'll see in our constant conversations, in our year one report and going forward is, for instance, on workforce. We need to make sure that our workforce is AI ready, and it does not mean that everyone needs to be a computer scientist. It means that we need to have a workforce that is able to participate in the AI economy and benefit from the AI economy in all the ways, both personally from the AI use as well as economically. We need to make sure that in our education realm, that we are creating a population that is able to thrive in this AI world. So those are areas where you've seen us mention. In addition, internal workforce within the government. We need to make sure that they're capable. And then a third area that we think that the federal government has unique purview, and that's an international collaboration. AI does not have boundaries, and so to some extent, while we're talking about federal regulations and litigation, it's a bit of a misnomer. We need to have our eye on the global landscape at the same time. It's not either or, it is both, and the federal government is in the unique position to make sure that we are having that important collaboration and discussion and alignment on AI.
So how do we, in the couple seconds we have left, there's, we know there are members of Congress here today. There's a lot of people from congressional offices. If they're going to run back to the Hill right now, what is the message they should be taking to those elected officials and say, okay, this is what we need to start with?
From my personal hat at EqualAI, not my NIAC hat, I would say you're absolutely right to be getting steeped on AI policy in the way that you have over the past few months. Thank you for that. We need to make sure that those three critical areas are addressed today. How do we make sure that our democracy can continue to thrive? I believe a core piece of that is making sure that our population, our workforce, our people are AI ready, that they're able to participate, that they are safe to participate. And that's obviously a longer conversation, but an important one because I do believe our democracy depends on it.
Well, I'm glad that we've gotten the conversation started today. Miriam, thank you for coming out. Thanks.